You know, I especially want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, any of you who have been praying for me for the past however long. Because for me, as far as control of my diabetes goes, my prayers have been answered. And I want to thank you. The past few years, I've really been in bad shape. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes about 9 years ago, and I've struggled with it ever since. I've never had my blood sugars under any kind of strict control, and it's made doing the things that I really enjoy doing very difficult. I used to be a very physically active person. In 1974, for instance, about the time of the Spokane World's Fair, I heard that there had been a group of people that had bicycled over from Seattle. So 2 years earlier, the North Cascades Highway, SR-20, had opened up. So I decided to take that route at the age of 16 by myself. And my parents were very hesitant, I think at first, to allow me to do that, but after some convincing and bugging, I'm sure, they agreed to let me do that. And it was very, very hot that summer. I remember getting stuck in Omak because it was so hot I had sweat all my liquids out. So they had to come over and rescue me. But I continued to bicycle for much of my teen years. I'd often ride from Mount Vernon to Bellingham and back to visit my grandma. And probably in the next 10 years or so, I completed at least 20 century rides. These are 100-mile bicycle rides that are organized and they time them and all of this kind of thing. At the same time I was doing all this, I was a peak bagger. I climbed Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, Mount Adams, and I was actually on Mount St. Helens the winter before it blew, but we ran into such deep powder snow that we had to turn around and go back. So anyway, I guess my point of this is to not brag, but to relate some of the physical things that I've done in my life and how I have felt limited by my diabetes to do a lot of these things that I used to do. In 1984, I decided to ride down the coast of the United States. So in June of that year, I started out with a couple of friends from the Peace Arch in Blaine, and they decided not to continue on with the trip somewhere around Anacortes. That had been a deciding factor, that they could see that there was no way they were going to make 100 miles a day, and that's what it took to do that trip. So anyway, they were very kind to me, and I'll always be grateful for the friends that they were. But anyway, I completed the trip, the Canadian border to the border crossing at Mexico there. I did that in 17 days in 1984. It was quite an adventure. In fact, I consider that to be one of the biggest adventures I've ever had in my whole life. It's something I'll never forget. The coastline was beautiful. I've done it on a motorcycle many times, and it's just not the same trip at all. You just see so much more on a bicycle. You smell so much more. So part of this video is that I wanted to relate to you something that happened on the way back from our annual vacation to Arizona this year. We were in Cedar City, Utah, and my wife Pam happened to tune across a channel that had Dr. Oz on it, and he was promoting a diet that he was talking about was the sugar beaters diet. And I looked at that diet and I thought, you know, that's something that I could do. I've been taking insulin at that point for 9 years. And this is my last vial of insulin and my last syringe. For 9 years I've been taking this stuff, up to 200 units a day. Within the first 10 days of being on this diet, I went off insulin completely. And I can't tell you what a blessing that is. You know, every time I got on an exercise bike or I went out for a bicycle ride or anything, or even for a long walk, I had to worry about going low in my blood sugar. And if you've never had that experience, let me tell you, it's nothing that you ever want to have happen to you. So anyway, I've continued. This is January 2nd we saw this show. So by the 12th of January this year, I was completely off of insulin. Now I've continued to stick with this diet, and I've started walking. And if you're my Facebook friend, you've probably seen my little run keeper things that I've put up. You know, walk this far tonight, this much time. But anyway, because I no longer have to worry about my blood sugar going low, I've decided to do a fundraiser. And this fundraiser will be for the Ferndale Food Bank. And the plan is for me to duplicate my ride from 1984 at the age of 26 in the year 2016. I'll ride from the Peace Arch in Blaine to the Mexican border down there at San Ysidro. And I plan to do it in the same amount of time, 17 days, 100 miles a day for 17 days. This is the bicycle that I rode in 1984. Let's see, this thing was purchased in 1972 from Jack's Bicycle Shop, which was on James at the time. And I've had it ever since. I've done quite a bit in the way of modifications to it. But you can see I've replaced the rear gear set, and I'm in the process of putting a new rear derailleur in and a few other little things. But anyway, this is the bicycle that I plan on riding to Mexico to try and raise money for the Ferndale Food Bank. You might ask me why, at the age of 57 years old, would I want to do this? Why would I want to ride a bicycle from Canada to Mexico again? And my answer to you is because I can. Because it's part of my nature to do this type of stuff. It makes me feel alive, vital, like I've still got something left in life. That is why I want to do this ride. What's really strange about this diet that I'm on is I have tried all of this stuff before. I was running and walking 5 miles a day when I first got diabetes in order to try and control my blood sugars. I've eaten almost exactly the same things. However, the difference was in the proportions. I never put that much vegetable on my plate in proportion to beans and meat. It sounds like a very simple difference, but it really does make, for me, all the difference in the world. So this is a typical breakfast. It consists of approximately a cup of beans or lentils, a pile of broccoli, barely cooked, and a omelet that I make with diced mushroom and onion, and it's got fat-free cheese in the center. It is 1 whole egg and 3 egg whites. And then this morning I've got a bottle of water with emergency in it. So this is a typical breakfast, and this will hold me until 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Be a typical lunch. Here I have probably about 3 ounces of Costco chicken stripped off, no skin, with a little mustard and Heinz 57 steak sauce. Some nuts, and a salad with olives, tomatoes, cucumbers, and weedy salad mix, and of course a lovely V8. So that's what's in a typical lunch for this diet I'm on.